Magic the Gathering is a game that features a vast and continuous multiverse of stories set across countless planes that incorporates numerous themes. One of those themes is horror. With the beginning of October, so begins our countdown to Halloween. 30 days, 30 decks, 30 different creatures of the night, all culminating with a special 31st episode on Halloween Day itself. For those of you with a profound fascination of the macabre, I invite you to join me on this venture through 30 days of night. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm MTG Budget Brew, and welcome to day 23 of our 30 days of night. Today's creature type are small, winged, humanoid beings that are renowned for being great lovers of mischief. Today we're playing fairies in a pseudo burn build. For today's deck, I built around Talion, the Kindly Lord. It is 2 blue and a black for a 3/4 fairy noble with flying that says, as Talion enters, choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. If you have a good idea about what kind of deck your opponent's running, and roughly the average cost of the spells that they're casting, Talion can burn your opponent for a lot of damage while also drawing you cards at the same time. And I think that's a really cool effect. Because Talion is a 4-mana legendary creature, however, I am only running 2 copies. So the other 2 rares that we are running for today's deck are 2 copies of Bitterblossom. Most of you have probably seen this card before, but if you don't know it, it is 1 in a black for a Kindred Enchantment Fairy. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 black fairy creature token with flying. Next up, we have some more fairies that can deal non-combat damage to our opponents. In 4 copies of Obyra Dreaming Duelist, which is a blue and a black for a 2/2 fairy warrior with flash and flying that says, whenever another fairy you control enters, each opponent loses 1 life, and also High Fae Negotiator. It is 3 and 2 black for a 3/5 fairy warlock with bargain and flying that says, when this creature enters, if it was bargained, each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Bargain says you may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. Those are, however, the only 10 cards in the deck that can deal non-combat damage, which is why I'm only calling this deck Pseudo Burn. The other fairies that we're running in this deck are 4 copies of Faerie Dreamthief, 4 copies of Mischievous Mystic, which is not itself a fairy, but it says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. We're running 2 copies of Faebloom Trick, which can create 2 more fairy tokens, while also tapping down target creature and opponent controls. And we have 2 copies of Halo Forager. To help us get the additional draws we need for our Mischievous Mystic, we're running a full playset of Consider, as well as a full playset of Winged Words. This card I actually just swapped into the deck. I was running a full playset of Deadly Dispute before this, but I didn't think that we had enough sacrifice targets for Deadly Dispute to consistently be good. I had a couple games where the only creature I had on the board was Mischievous Mystic, but sacking this to then draw extra cards with Deadly Dispute doesn't make any sense because this is the card that we need on the field to get benefit from drawing additional cards. So I thought Winged Words would just have a little bit less anti-synergy with the deck. So we'll see how it feels when we hop into some matches. For removal, the only cards that we're running are a full playset of Faerie Fencing. It is X and a black for an instant that says target creature gets -X until end of turn, and that creature gets an additional -3/-3 until end of turn if you controlled a fairy as you cast this spell. So as long as you have a fairy, this will be doing at minimum -3/-3 to a target creature. And finally, for our mana base, it's real simple. We are running 10 islands, 10 swamps, and 4 copies of Choked Estuary. If we take a look at my untapped account, you can see that I am currently 3-1 with the deck with a 75% win rate. But like I just said, this deck was running Deadly Dispute, and I just swapped in Winged Words. But I expect it to be a positive change for the deck, and hopefully we'll see that I'm right. So I think it's about time we go hop into some matches. Alright guys, here we are in another game. We're going first. We didn't have to mulligan our hand. That's great. We're gonna start with the turn 1 Faerie Dreamthief. I don't think we need any more lands, so I'm gonna throw that into the graveyard. We will end the turn. Finally get to see Mischievous Mystic. Hopefully we'll be able to get some good use out of him this game. I'll play that. Swing for 1 in the air, set our opponent to 19. They start with a Forest. I love to see it. My first 3 games with this deck were against Life Gain. Mono White Life Gain, then Orzhov Life Gain, then Orzhov Life Gain again. And I'm really over it now. Yeah, going forward with any other recordings, if I see my opponent playing Life Gain, I'm gonna play the way that I normally play. I'm just gonna concede the match and leave. So that's going to affect the win rate of our decks when we take a look at the stats on Untapped. But I don't care anymore. We swing in for 3 with our Mischievous Mystic and Faerie Dreamthief, set our opponent down to 17. Because yeah, playing out those games, it makes me hate Magic. It's a truly unfun experience. And if you're not having fun while playing the game, then what's the point of playing the game? And all that does is make my commentary worse, because then I'm not having fun. You know? All right, anyway, our opponent's running Teamer colors so far. They haven't done anything, but here comes a Baral and Kari Zev. It is 1 a blue and a red for a 2/4 human with first strike and menace. It says, whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, you may cast a spell with lesser mana value that shares a card type with it from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, create First Mate Ragavan, a legendary 2/1 red monkey pirate creature token that gains haste until end of turn. Nice. All right, this is about to be a nice turn for us because we're going to consider, which is going to trigger both of our Mischievous Mystics. We're going to surveil 1, draw a card. I'm going to take another consider. We're about to make 2 1/1 fairies, which is very nice. I'm then going to go to combat, swing, what is that, 6 in the air. Our opponent to 11 and end the turn. I don't expect that they'll be running board wipes, but I am going to hold this Faebloom Trick until our opponent's end step. Because while it's unlikely, on very rare occasions, I have seen opponents run red spells that are like 1 or 2 mana that say deal 1 damage to all creatures that your opponents control. Like, I think it's End of Festivities. There's a card like that, and something like that would blow out our board. Plus, playing all these games against No White Life Gain, they like to run board wipes. At least the Orzhov decks that I played against did. So they've got me paranoid. Anyway, our opponent casts Solfim Mayhem Dominus, which is a really cool card. It's a 4 mana 5/4 Phyrexian Horror that says, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. It was not an instant or sorcery though, to trigger Baral and Kari Zev, so that's nice. They're gonna swing 2 at us. I think we just take the 2, go down to 18, and cast the Faebloom Trick. Oh yeah, I forgot that we get to tap one of their creatures when we cast this. I could have tapped down the Baral and Kari Zev, but that way they wouldn't even get the opportunity to swing at us. But I think this is just lethal in the air, right? 1 off lethal. I guess we consider. Bitterblossom. I guess I'll take it and play it out. We make 2 more tokens because of the Mystics. And we see if our opponent can clear our board. They need something really good here. Okay, they play Howl of the Horde, which would have copied another spell. And that's just game. All right, I'm gonna treat this as game 1. So good game 1. Good game 1. All right, here we are in another game. In our opening hand, I don't love it, and it's greedy for me to keep it, but I'm keeping it anyway. Yeah, that's about it. Nice, and our greed pays off. We top deck a swamp, so now we can play a turn 1 Faerie Dreamthief. When it enters, we get to surveil 1. Ooh, that's a Talion on top. I will keep Talion. Yeah, it was very greedy to keep the hand that we had because we didn't have access to black mana. But I figured if I can get Mischievous Mystic out on turn 2, and then on the following turn, cast Consider, it'd be worth it, as long as the Mystic wasn't dead yet. All right, our opponent, they played a turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim, it's just a mana dork. Then they played Torgal, a Fine Hound. 2 mana 2/2 Wolf. Whenever you cast your first human creature spell each turn, that creature enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each dog and or wolf you control. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. And then they played a Thraben Inspector, which entered with a +1/+1 counter and made a clue token. Pretty good looking turn 2. I won't lie. So do I set up the Mystic or the Bitterblossom? That is the question. I think the Bitterblossom, because next turn we could play the Mystic and then still consider and make our token. So far we've seen nothing but small creatures come out of our opponent's deck. I find that very suspicious because they've cast 5 cards and 3 of them are mana dorks. They swing at us. I'll use a Faerie Dreamthief to block Avacyn's Pilgrim, so that will die. Take 5, go down to 15, we make a token, we go down to 14. Yeah, very interesting. I'm not sure what the mana dorks are trying to ramp up to. Anyway, we're gonna play a Mischievous Mystic. We will cast Consider to make a token. Halo Forager, don't think we need Halo Forager. Faerie Fencing is much better. See, next turn we have access to 4 mana. There's an Esper Sentinel, kind of scary. And they have a lot of pressure with their little guys. There's another Thraben Inspector. Okay, the best thing we could do, probably kill the Coppercoat Vanguard. Esper Sentinel is gonna have to stick around, I think. Not ideal, but I think it's necessary. I'm going to double block the Coppercoat Vanguard. I will chump the Thraben Inspector. We're only gonna take 2 damage, we go down to 12. We go to 11 when we make our token. Here, I'm not sure what the greatest move is. I could kill the Esper Sentinel, and we have enough mana to pay for its cost. I guess we'll do that, but let me start with Consider. If I was supposed to kill the Esper Sentinel first, I just gave him a free draw. That sucks. Don't need another Talion, I'll throw that in the graveyard. Okay, wait, that was weird. Shouldn't they have gotten the draw anyway? Maybe they didn't get the draw from me casting Consider. I think they didn't get the draw because I cast Faerie Fencing, which meant that when the trigger on the stack tried to check Esper Sentinel's power, it was 0. So we didn't have to pay anything. It meant that they didn't draw a card. That was interesting. They swing at us again. I will chump again. We're still going to take 3. We'll go down to 8. We are going to lose this game. We just have no board presence. Play out Obyra. Exile Faerie Dreamthief. We draw a card, lose 1 life. Opponent just flashed in Cemetery Protector. When this enters, exile a card from a graveyard. They exiled Talion. That's weird. I thought they were going to exile our fairy in response. They play Sigarda, Heron's Grace. 5 mana, 4/5 flying. You and humans you control have hexproof. Yeah, I'll just say no blocks. Now they got us, but it was just too much pressure for us. We couldn't get ahead of them. I think we must have been on the draw. Yeah, we lost on the draw. All right, here we are on the play. Turn 1, I will consider. Bitterblossom seems pretty good. We'll take that as our turn 2 play. Play out the Bitterblossom and pass. Opponent is running Snowlands. That's neat. From here, I could play Halo Forager, but we can't use its ETB ability to cast Consider, so I'm just gonna play out Faerie Dreamthief and pass. We get to surveil 1. Obyra, beautiful. We'll leave that on top. Definitely want to take that. Our opponent passes with 2 blue mana up. That is very, very suspicious. I will cast Obyra. It sticks. Swing it for 2, set our opponent to 18. They play an Elvish Visionary to draw a card, and they pass. I kind of want to play the Talion, but I don't know what number I would pick. We haven't seen them cast anything yet. I kind of don't want to extend any further into our opponent's board when I don't know what they're doing. They'll just swing in for 5 in the air, set our opponent down to 12, and the turn. If they have some way to wipe our board or bounce our board back to our hand, then in response, you know, I would exile Faerie Dreamthief with our remaining mana. Instead, they play Doubling Season. Do we have lethal here? And they scoop. Yeah, if I had gone to combat and swung out, we would have had 6 damage in the air. It goes down to 5. I could have played the High Fae Negotiator and bargained it. On the ETB for this, that would trigger Obyra. They lose 1 more. So they go down to 4. And then the Negotiator deals 3 more. They go down to 1. Okay, well, that one was really fast. But that's not that surprising. Our deck does well when going first, and when our opponent does literally nothing. Not that big of a surprise. All right, here we are in another game. We're going first. That is beautiful. We have turn 1, Faerie Dreamthief. Turn 2, we can set up Mischievous Mystic. Let's see, we get to surveil 1. We find a Faerie Fencing. I will go ahead and take that, or I will leave it on top. Turn 2, we play out the Mystic. Swing for 1, set our opponent to 19. And now we're chilling. As long as this Mystic is still alive, we'll be able to start making some tokens. Our opponent plays Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender. 2 mana, 3/1 Food Knight. This has Trample, Hexproof, and Haste as long as an opponent controls a Planeswalker. Whenever another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Ginger and scry 1. Pay 2, tap, sack Sir Ginger, you gain life equal to its power. Okay, we can just kill that right now with Faerie Fencing, so I think I shall. Pay X equals 0. We'll give this -3/-3. It dies. We'll cast Winged Words. We'll draw 2 cards. That will make us a token from Mischievous Mystic. Swing 3. Their opponent to 16. Yeah, we are in a pretty dominant position right now. They play another Sir Ginger. From here, I will cast Winged Words number 2. Draw 2 more cards. Make another fairy. Find an Obyra. I could Faerie Fencing this Sir Ginger, and I guess I will. I'll pay 0. Let's kill this one again, and our opponent scoops. I kind of figured they would. I almost didn't want to cast that. I almost wanted to just set up Obyra instead, but I don't blame them for scooping. All right, here we are in another game. This is probably going to be our last one. Actually, definitely going to be the last one. So hopefully we can end on a high note. Our win rate going second is not good though. Like really not good. All right, opponent has played out 2 swamps. So I think we're just gonna pass here. Hope that they play something, and then at our opponent's end step, I'll flash in Obyra. Perfect. They play Voracious Vermin. 2 in black for 2/1 rat. When this enters, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this token can't block. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Nice. Nice rats. Okay, we'll flash in Obyra. Now we are almost chilling. Could be chilling. Actually, do I want to use removal already? No. I'm going to play out Mischievous Mystic. I'll cast Consider. We'll surveil 1, draw a card. We find a Faerie Dreamthief on top. I will take that. We'll make a fairy token, deal 1 damage to our opponent, swing 2 in the air, set them down to 17, end the turn. If our opponent has removal, they'll have to choose between Obyra or the Mystic. And if they don't, then our board is set up in a really nice position. They play out another rat, Lord Skitter's Butcher. 3 mana, 2/3. When it enters, choose 1. They chose to sacrifice another creature. If you do, scry 2, draw a card. I put a counter on the Voracious Vermin. It is now 3/2. They have 1 black mana up. I hope they don't have a cut down. They possibly have a cut down. Nope, that's eaten alive. They exile our Mystic. Swinging 4 at us, we can take 4. We go down to 16. That's good. See, I made them split their removal by setting up the way that we did. It means that we still have one of the creatures that we want to keep alive. So from here, we got a lot of options. Faerie Fencing, this is definitely happening. We can pay X equals 0, give their vermin -3/-3, that will die. And then we could either play out a Faerie Dreamthief and draw 2, or we can save Faebloom Trick. I think we're going to go with Faerie Dreamthief, and I will draw last, like any great Magic player does. Go to combat, swing 3, set our opponent down to 13, and we end the turn. Our opponent plays Monix, the Rat King. Absolutely love this card. For this ETB trigger, they find another Monix, and they put that in their hand. And then they play out a Typhoid Rats, 1/1 with Death Touch. So now all of their rats have Toxic 1, okay? They sacrifice their Typhoid Rats to Corrupted Conviction to draw 2 cards. From here, I think I'm just going to play out a Faerie Dreamthief. On ETB, we get to Surveil 1. We see a High Fae Negotiator. We'll leave that on top. Go to combat, swing 4 in the air, set our opponent down to 8. We are holding up mana so that we can cast Faebloom Trick, or to use one of our Faerie Dreamthiefs as a blocker and then pay mana to exile this card, draw a card, and lose 1 life. This is interesting. Our opponent plays out their second Monix. It is legendary, but they get an ETB trigger that says, look at the top 5 cards of your library. They can reveal any number of rats from those cards and then put them into their hand. They find 2 more rats off of that. Okay, and they played Persistent Marsh Stalker. So much text. 2 mana 3/1 gets +1/+0 for each other rat you control. Threshold, whenever you attack with 1 or more rats, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may pay 2 and a black. If you do, return this card from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. So much. All right, anyway, we are going to cast Faebloom Trick. We're going to tap down their Monix before combat, and then that's just lethal in the air. All right. Oh yeah, Mono Black Rats is definitely not the most challenging deck to beat, but the fact that we got a win while going second feels good. Because trust me, when you see the win rate percentage on the draw, it is really bad. All right, guys, here we are on my Untapped account. As you can see, we are 8-4 with the deck with a 67% win rate, 100% win rate on the play, only 33% win rate on the draw. We were on the play for 6 of our games. Yeah, 6 of them, and we won every single one of those matches, which means for the other 6 games where we were on the draw, we only won 2. During our matches, I didn't pay attention to the times when I was casting Winged Words, just compare it to whether or not Deadly Dispute would be better in that situation, but I think I prefer this card. Plus, I use Deadly Dispute in a lot of decks. It's nice to change it up a little bit. I did originally like the idea of Deadly Dispute, because in theory, we should have 1/1 fairy tokens to sacrifice and then get the additional draws. But we're only running 2 Bitterblossoms in the deck. We're only running 2 Faebloom Trick. And again, it kind of has anti-synergy with Mischievous Mystic, because the Mystic only makes the token after we get additional draw, and the additional draw we only get if we have a token. So they kind of just don't quite work together. But yeah, the Winged Words, 2 mana draw 2, it's pretty good. Yeah, I liked it. The deck felt solid, felt good. And I'm a big fan of the synergy between the Halo Forager and Faerie Fencing. Being able to recast removal out of the graveyard, or even be able to like recast a Consider or a Winged Words from the graveyard, even just a few times with our 2 copies of Halo Forager, it's very useful. So yeah, if you guys are interested in fairies, Dimir decks, or flying tribal decks, I would recommend giving this deck a shot. My only real advice for the deck is keep an eye on your life total. The life you pay for Bitterblossom and to exile Faerie Dreamthief, it can sneak up on you. But if you're able to draw into your High Fae Negotiators, you should be just fine. So with that said, thank you guys for joining me on day 23 of our 30 Days of Night. If you liked the video, you should like the video. If you liked me, the video, and you like Magic the Gathering, you should consider subscribing to the channel because that will get you more of all 3. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow.